First Contact's deception. The Karn Imperial fleet moved like liquid metal through the void, 12 ships in perfect geometric formation. Their hulls gleamed with photon absorption plates, a technology that had made them the undisputed masters of 7 star systems. Admiral Voskel stood on his command deck, his crystalline sensory filaments rippling with satisfaction as they detected a single ship at the edge of their territory. Analysis, he commanded, his subsonic frequencies causing the bridge's crystalline interfaces to resonate. Single vessel, designation unknown, his sensor officer reported, utilizing primitive fusion drive systems. Detecting minimal weapon signatures. Configuration suggests a research vessel, likely from the newly discovered human territories. Kell's filaments shifted to a deep azure of amusement. The humans were an anomaly in this sector, a species that had achieved faster-than-light travel despite still relying on fusion drives and projectile weapons. Their expansion had been noted, but not considered a concern by the Karn Strategic Command. "Show me," he ordered. The holographic display materialized, showing a sleek vessel approximately 1/3 the size of his flagship. Its hull was dark, absorbing rather than reflecting local starlight, and its design was surprisingly elegant for a primitive species. The ship's designation appeared in flowing Karn script, HSV Starweaver. "They're maintaining position," the tactical officer noted. "No attempt to flee or raise shields." "Of course not," Kell responded. "They recognize their technological inferiority. Open a communication channel. Let's show them how civilization handles first contact." The human vessel's response was immediate, but puzzling. Instead of the expected panic or diplomatic overtures, a calm voice transmitted in perfect Karn harmonics. "This is Captain Sarah Mitchell of the human scout vessel Starweaver. We acknowledge your presence and maintain our position as a gesture of peace." Kell's filaments twitched. The humans shouldn't have been able to produce Karn harmonics, let alone transmit them with such precision. A lucky technological breakthrough, perhaps. He dismissed the concern. "Captain Mitchell," he responded, "you have entered Karn's sovereign space. Your vessel will be impounded, and your crew detained for questioning. Resist, and we will respond with appropriate force." The human captain's response carried an undertone that Kell's translators couldn't quite interpret. "Admiral, with respect, we're actually in unclaimed space according to the Galactic Concordat of Navigation. But we're happy to discuss boundaries. Perhaps we could start with why your fleet is in attack formation." Kell felt his filaments stiffen. The human vessel's sensors shouldn't have been able to detect their formation's true nature. Their stealth systems were the most advanced in known space. He signaled his tactical officer, who responded with confirmation. Their weapon systems were charged and locked. "Your primitive sensors are mistaken, Captain," Kell replied smoothly. "This is a standard patrol configuration. Now, power down your systems and prepare for boarding." "I was afraid you'd say that," Mitchell responded, and Kell detected something new in her voice. Was it amusement? "Admiral, I'm obligated to inform you that your current course of action violates 3 separate articles of the Interstellar Engagement Protocols. Would you like me to cite them?" Kell had heard enough. These humans clearly needed a demonstration of real power. "Target their propulsion systems," he ordered. A precise hit shoulder. "Sir." His sensor officer's harmonics shattered with alarm. The human vessel's mass reading just changed, and their power signature is impossible. The Starweaver's hull had begun to shift, plates realigning like scales on a living creature. What had appeared to be simple hull plating was transforming, revealing layers of technology that Kell's sensors couldn't even classify. "A final warning, Admiral," Mitchell's voice came again, now carrying an edge of steel beneath its diplomatic veneer. "The Starweaver is a long-range scout vessel of the Human Expeditionary Force. We're designed to survive encounters with unknown hostile forces. Are you certain you want to test our capabilities?" Kell's filaments blazed with anger. No primitive species would dictate terms to the Karn Empire. "All ships, open fire. Show them the price of arrogance." The space between the ships erupted with energy as 12 Karn vessels unleashed their full weapon arrays. For a moment, the human ship disappeared in the blinding flash of multiple direct hits. But when the energy dissipated, the Starweaver hung unchanged in space, and now it was glowing. "Very well." Mitchell's voice came one final time. Educational protocol engaged. That's when Kell learned humanity's first lesson about warfare. Appearances can be deceiving, and he was about to learn many more. The silence before. Captain Sarah Mitchell stood motionless on the Starweaver's bridge, her expression neutral as she studied the Karn fleet's formation through the quantum imaging display. Behind her, her crew worked with practiced efficiency, their augmented neural interfaces allowing them to process combat data at speeds that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. "They're maintaining their geometric pattern," Lieutenant Zhang reported from the tactical station, his augmented eyes glowing faintly as they processed multiple data streams. "Their confidence in their technology is absolute. Most species that achieve their level of advancement without real competition develop that mindset." Mitchell responded, allowing herself a small smile. "How's our deception field holding?" "Perfect, Captain. They're still seeing exactly what we want them to see." Zhang's fingers danced across his haptic interface. "Their scans can't penetrate past our outer hull layer. As far as they're concerned, we're still just a lightly armed research vessel." The Starweaver's true nature was anything but simple. The vessel represented the culmination of 3 centuries of human warfare, adaptation, and survival. Every component, from its quantum-shifted hull plates to its dimensional phase drives, had been developed through necessity. The necessity of a species that had nearly destroyed itself countless times before reaching the stars. "Signal from the Karn flagship," Communications Officer Patel announced. "Their admiral is demanding our surrender." Again, rather colorfully this time. Mitchell nodded, unsurprised. "They still think their first salvo actually hit us, don't they?" "Affirmative," Zhang confirmed. "Their sensors registered multiple direct impacts. They haven't realized that their weapons passed through projected mass shadows while we were already 50 meters from their target solutions." The bridge crew shared knowing looks. The Starweaver's Phantom Shift system had been developed specifically for scenarios like this, allowing potential hostiles to believe their first strike had succeeded, gathering valuable tactical data about their weapons in the process. "Dr. Chen," Mitchell called to her science officer. "Analysis of their weapon systems." Dr. Elena Chen looked up from her station, her neural interface projection displaying complex energy patterns in the air around her. "Fascinating technology, Captain. Their energy weapons operate on quantum cascade principles we theorized but never pursued. Extremely powerful, but..." She paused, double-checking her readings. "Predictable. They never had to develop countermeasures against their own weapons." "Because they never fought equals," Mitchell finished. It was a common pattern they'd encountered in their exploration of the galaxy. Species that achieved technological supremacy through unopposed expansion often failed to develop the kind of defensive innovations that came from centuries of internal conflict. "Captain," Zhang interrupted, his augmented eyes flaring brighter. "They're repositioning their fleet. Energy readings suggest they're preparing to launch their entire weapon complement." Mitchell studied the tactical display. The Karn ships had arranged themselves in a perfect sphere around the Starweaver, their formation designed to create overlapping fields of fire that would, in theory, be inescapable. It was textbook strategy for a species that had never encountered an enemy capable of surviving their first strike. "They're still using standard space tactical algorithms," she noted. "Lieutenant Zhang, are you thinking what I'm thinking?" Zhang's smile was slight but predatory. "Their formation assumes combat in 3 dimensions. They haven't considered the possibility of higher dimensional maneuvering." "Exactly." Mitchell turned to her helm officer. "Lieutenant Santos, plot a phase shift that will take us through the 4th dimensional space between their coverage zones. Let's show them why humanity never stopped exploring alternative physics." Santos' hands moved across her console with precise grace. "Course plotted, Captain." Phase generators spooling up. We'll have full shift capability in 30 seconds. Mitchell opened a channel to the Karn flagship. Admiral Kell, I'm offering you one final opportunity to withdraw. Your weapons cannot harm us, and we have no desire for unnecessary conflict. The response came immediately, Kell's harmonics practically vibrating with rage. You dare to threaten the Karn Empire. Your primitive vessel survived one salvo through luck or trickery. You will not survive what comes next. Mitchell sighed, closing the channel. They never ask themselves the important question, do they? Which is that, Captain? Patil asked. Why a supposedly primitive species would choose to engage a technologically superior force head-on. She straightened her uniform. Status of our combat systems. All systems optimal, Zhang reported. Phase cannons charge. Quantum torpedoes armed. Dimensional shift drive at full power. ECM suites ready for deployment. Very well. Mitchell took her command seat, her expression turning serious. Let's give the Karn Empire their first lesson in human warfare. Initiate Combat Protocol Sierra 7. Show them exactly why Earth's children learn to fight in more dimensions than most species know exist. The space around the Starweaver began to ripple as its true nature emerged. The lesson was about to begin. Dimensions of war. Admiral Kell's command center erupted in chaos as the human vessel simply vanished. Impossible. His sensor officer's crystalline filaments vibrated with distress. No ship can just disappear. The Starweaver reappeared instantly, somehow between two of his cruisers where no space had existed for a ship that size. Before his fleet could react, pulses of energy unlike anything in Karn combat records lanced out from the human vessel. They didn't strike his ships directly. Instead, they seemed to pass through points in space near his vessels. Minor damage only, his tactical officer reported, filaments gleaming with relief. Their weapons missed. The officer never finished his sentence. The space around 3 Karn ships suddenly compressed, as if reality itself was being folded. When it snapped back, the vessels were gone, leaving behind only a scatter of particles that hadn't existed in this universe's physics moments before. Phase cannon impact successful, Lieutenant Zhang reported aboard the Starweaver. 3 enemy vessels relocated to parallel space-time coordinates. They'll reintegrate in about 6 hours, crew unharmed, but thoroughly enlightened about their tactical assumptions. Captain Mitchell nodded, watching as the remaining Karn ships broke their perfect formation, their movements now chaotic and uncoordinated. They're starting to realize geometric patterns don't work against an enemy that can move through higher dimensions. How are they adapting? They're attempting to generate quantum interference fields. Dr. Chen analyzed, her neural interface projecting complex mathematical models. Clever, they're trying to prevent us from using the same phase shift trick twice. But, she smiled, they're working from incomplete understanding of quantum mechanics. Show them why, Mitchell ordered. The Starweaver's hull began to transform again, but this time it wasn't just changing shape. The very material of the ship seemed to shift between states of matter, between dimensions, between possibilities. To the Karn sensors, it would appear as if they were fighting a vessel that existed in multiple planes of reality simultaneously. What are you? Admiral Kell's transmission carried undertones of fear now. This defies all known physics. No, Admiral, Mitchell responded calmly. It defies all physics known to species who never had to survive their own worst tendencies. Humanity learned to bend reality because we spent centuries trying to break it. She turned to her tactical officer. Lieutenant Zhang, demonstrate our point defense capabilities. Let's show them why we never abandoned projectile weapons. The space around the Starweaver erupted with what looked like traditional railgun fire. The Karn ship's energy shields easily deflected the primitive projectiles, just as their combat simulations predicted. What their simulations hadn't predicted was that each projectile would split into thousands of quantum-entangled fragments the moment before impact. Shields failing. Kell's tactical officer screamed. The projectiles. They're ignoring our defense frequencies. They're passing through our shields as if they don't exist. Because from their perspective, they don't. Mitchell explained over the still-open channel. Each fragment exists in a slightly different quantum state. You can't shield against all of them simultaneously. The demonstration continued as the Starweaver executed maneuvers that should have torn any ship apart. It phased between dimensions, split its mass across multiple points in space-time, and fired weapons that seemed to ignore the conventional laws of physics. "Captain," John reported, "they're attempting to coordinate a simultaneous barrage from all remaining ships. They think overwhelming force might overcome our defensive capabilities." Mitchell studied the tactical display. "They still haven't figured it out, have they?" Dr. Chen, "Explain to our friends why this won't work." "The Karn weapons," Chen began, "broadcasting on all frequencies, are based on quantum cascade principles. Incredibly powerful, but they rely on reality behaving according to expected rules. Our hull, however, doesn't maintain a consistent relationship with conventional spacetime. You can't hit what doesn't fully exist in your frame of reference." "Impossible," Kell responded. "No species could develop such technology. The power requirements alone would be astronomical," Mitchell finished for him. "Unless you had discovered how to harvest zero-point energy from quantum foam during your Third World War." "Necessity, Admiral. Humanity's greatest teacher." She turned to her helm officer, "Lieutenant Santos, execute attack pattern Delta 9. Let's finish this demonstration." The Starweaver began to move in ways that made the Karn tactical officer's visualization systems crash. It didn't fly so much as it rewrote its position in spacetime, appearing at mathematically impossible coordinates, firing weapons that treated physics as polite suggestions rather than laws. One by one, the remaining Karn ships found their weapons ineffective, their shields useless, their most advanced technology rendered irrelevant by a species that had learned to weaponize the fundamental nature of reality itself. "Final enemy vessel entering quantum lock," John reported. "All Karn ships are now effectively neutralized." Mitchell stood, straightening her uniform. "Open a channel to Admiral Kell's ship. I think it's time we had a real discussion about humanity's place in the galaxy." The battle was over. The education was about to begin. Lessons in history. Admiral Kell stood in the Starweaver's conference room, his crystalline sensory filaments dulled with shock. The holographic display before him showed the history he demanded to see, the history that explained how humans had achieved what his species had deemed impossible. "This can't be correct," he whispered, watching as images of Earth's past conflicts played out. "Your species survived this level of internal warfare." Captain Mitchell sat across from him, her calm demeanor a sharp contrast to the chaos displayed in the historical footage. "We didn't just survive it, Admiral. We learned from it. Every war, every conflict, every near-extinction event pushed us to innovate in ways your species never needed to consider." The display showed humanity's progression, from gunpowder to nuclear weapons, from conventional warfare to quantum mechanics, from planetary conflicts to the manipulation of spacetime itself. Here, Mitchell pointed to a particular moment in the timeline. The Third Quantum War. That's when we first cracked dimensional phasing technology. We needed a way to defend against weapons that could erase entire continents from existence. The solution was to simply not fully exist in the targeted spacetime coordinates. Kell's filaments twisted in disbelief. "Your species developed these technologies to use against yourselves." "Initially, yes." Dr. Chen had joined them, her neural interface projecting additional data streams. "Every major breakthrough in human history came from an arms race against ourselves. The Karn Empire achieved spaceflight through peaceful exploration. We achieved it because we needed better weapons platforms." The holographic display shifted to show the development of the Starweaver systems. "Your energy weapons," Chen continued, "are more powerful than anything we've developed. But power isn't everything. We learned that lesson centuries ago. Adaptability, unpredictability. These became our greatest weapons. The phase cannon technology that relocated your ships, Mitchell explained, was originally developed as a planetary defense system. We needed a way to protect population centers without destroying the attacking forces. Shifting targets into parallel space-time coordinates was our solution. Kell watched as the display showed the evolution of human defensive systems. Your hull technology. Quantum metamaterials, Chen confirmed. We discovered them while trying to develop better stealth systems for our submarines. Underwater warfare taught us how to think in 3 dimensions. Space warfare taught us how to think in 11. But why continue developing such technologies after achieving peace? Kell asked, his filaments showing genuine confusion. Your historical records indicate your species hasn't had a major internal conflict in over a century. Mitchell's expression grew serious. Because we learned another lesson from our history, Admiral. Peace isn't a permanent state. It's something you maintain through preparation and strength. Every technology on this ship exists because somewhere in our past, we needed it to survive ourselves. The display shifted again, showing the current state of human space. We don't build warships anymore, Mitchell said softly. Every vessel in our fleet, including the Starweaver, is classified as a defensive platform. We don't seek conflict, but we're prepared for it in ways most species can't comprehend. Your weapons, Kell noted, they were all designed to neutralize rather than destroy. Even when we opened fire, you responded with restraint. Another lesson from our past, Mitchell confirmed. The most powerful military force isn't the one that can destroy its enemies. It's the one that doesn't need to. Your ships and crews will be fine. In fact, they'll probably have some fascinating new insights into quantum mechanics when they reintegrate. A communication chime interrupted them. Captain, Lieutenant Jung's voice came through. We're detecting additional Karn vessels entering the system. Reading 5 Dreadnought-class signatures. Kell's filaments flared with alarm. The Imperial Reserve Fleet. They must have detected our engagement. Mitchell remained calm. Admiral, you have a choice to make. The Reserve Fleet is undoubtedly powerful, but you've seen what we can do. Would you prefer to demonstrate your Empire's strength or its wisdom? Kell stared at the historical display for a long moment, watching humanity's violent path to enlightenment play out before him. Finally, his filaments shifted to a deep shade of resolution. Open a channel to the Reserve Fleet, he commanded. It's time the Karn Empire learned something from humanity's example. The real diplomacy was about to begin. Evolution's edge. The Karn Imperial Reserve Fleet hung in space like crystalline daggers, their massive forms dwarfing both the Starweaver and Admiral Kell's remaining vessels. On the bridge of the human ship, Captain Mitchell watched the tactical display with practiced calm as Kell transmitted his report to the Reserve Fleet's commander. They won't believe him, Lieutenant Jung observed quietly. Not without proof. They don't need to believe him, Mitchell responded, a subtle smile playing at her lips. They just need to be curious enough to ask the right questions. Dr. Chen, is our guest still reviewing the technical archives? Yes, Captain. Admiral Kell's neural patterns suggest he's processing the information at an extraordinary rate. He's particularly focused on our early quantum mechanics experiments. The main screen flickered as a new transmission came through. The Reserve Fleet Commander, Supreme Admiral Vex, appeared as an imposing figure of crystalline and metallic segments. His sensory filaments blazed with barely contained fury. This is impossible, Vex declared without preamble. Admiral Kell speaks of physics-defying technology, of weapons that ignore natural laws. No species cold. Supreme Admiral, Mitchell interrupted politely, would you be interested in knowing why we allowed your initial scans to detect our fusion drives? The question caught Vex off guard, his filaments shifting to a pattern indicating confusion. Aloud, Captain, Dr. Chen's voice held an undertone of amusement. I believe it's time for the final demonstration. Shall I disable the Arctech camouflage? Mitchell nodded. Show them what humanity really achieved when we stopped fighting ourselves and started exploring the stars. The space around the Starweaver began to change. What had appeared to be a hull of advanced but recognizable materials simply dissolved. Beneath it lay something that the Karn sensors couldn't even classify, a structure that seemed to exist partially outside normal spacetime. By the first crystal, Vex whispered, his filaments pale with shock. "What are we seeing?" "This," Mitchell explained, "is what happens when a species spends centuries learning how to break physics, then turns that knowledge toward exploration instead of warfare. The Starweaver isn't just a ship, Supreme Admiral. It's a demonstration platform, designed to interact with less advanced species without causing panic." The fusion drive signatures. Kell's voice came through, understanding dawning in his harmonics. "Were generated specifically to make you comfortable," Chen confirmed. "Our actual propulsion system doesn't interact with normal spacetime enough to generate readable signatures. We're not powered by fusion, antimatter, or any other conventional energy source. The Starweaver harvests quantum potential directly from the fabric of reality." The tactical displays across the Karn fleet began showing readings that their systems insisted were impossible. The human vessel's true form defied their most advanced sensors, existing in states that their science had deemed theoretical at best. "The weapons we demonstrated earlier," Mitchell continued, "were similarly scaled down to comprehensible levels. We didn't want to cause a diplomatic incident by showing technology too far beyond current galactic standards." "Too far beyond?" Vex's filaments twisted in disbelief. "You mean those weren't your actual combat capabilities?" "Supreme Admiral." Mitchell's voice carried genuine warmth. "Humanity hasn't needed actual weapons in almost 50 years. Everything you saw was a diplomatic tool, designed to demonstrate concepts in terms other species can understand. Our real technology doesn't interact with reality in ways your sensors could meaningfully detect." A new hologram appeared between the fleets, a representation of human space that made both Karn Admiral's filaments go completely still. The territory was far larger than their intelligence had suggested, and the energy readings from some of the human installations defied classification. "We came out here looking for neighbors," Mitchell explained. "The Starweaver's mission isn't military, it's educational. We've learned that it's better to demonstrate our capabilities clearly but carefully, rather than risk misunderstandings that could lead to conflict." "All this technology," Kell mused, his scientific curiosity overtaking his military training, "and you use it for teaching." "The greatest power isn't in destroying or dominating," Mitchell responded. "It's in understanding. Humanity learned that lesson the hard way. Now we try to help others learn it the easy way." The space between the fleets shimmered as the Starweaver's true defensive systems became briefly visible, not barriers or shields, but localized alterations in the fundamental constants of physics itself. "So," Mitchell addressed both admirals, "shall we begin discussing cultural exchange programs? We found that sharing knowledge is far more rewarding than demonstrating force. And I believe humanity and the Karn Empire have much to teach each other." The Karn Admiral's filaments shifted through various patterns before settling on a deep shade of acceptance. They had come expecting to find primitives or enemies. Instead, they had found teachers. "There is an old human saying," Mitchell offered as the diplomatic channels opened. "The more you know, the more you realize how much you don't know. Welcome to humanity's version of First Contact, Admirals. Class is now in session." In the space between the fleets, reality itself seemed to smile as two civilizations began the long journey from confrontation to understanding. The Starweaver's true mission was just beginning.